So there are 5 steps that will facilitate the process of responding versus reacting. And I always like to give these steps to people. Sometimes I use a story about myself just to show you how I implemented it, because I remember having the aha moment 20 years ago because I was always tardy before that. I was always about 10 or 15 minutes late, at least 5. And 20 years ago, it was called to my attention by someone, and my initial reaction was to get defensive, have to explain myself. I felt shame, I felt embarrassment, and I always felt a shitload of anxiety on my way to whatever I was late to. And this is just a small example. I use it to share to just kind of show you how to work through the steps. And then I'm gonna go and I'm gonna give you some real life situations that you may be able to actually use that I've went over with clients. So you can walk away with something where you can possibly see it in action and then be able to put it in action in your life. The 5 steps are, number 1, you slow down. Now what happens when you slow down, and this is so key, is that you're able actually to give yourself time to say, wait a second, am I being reactive here? Or am I being, like, I want to respond, but I'm being reactive. And that's completely normal, because as humans, especially if we've had other experiences in our past that have shut us down, that have been negative and even traumatic, we tend to bring those into our current life and we see it through a lens, right? It's like glasses that we see the world through. And so what slowing down does, you're able to take off those glasses and you're able to say, wait a second, this person is not attacking me. This person is not criticizing me. And in my case with being tardy 20 years ago, it was just my boss who was frustrated with me, and she was tired of telling me the same thing. And it made me realize, like, it wasn't that she was picking on me or that she was being critical with me. She just had a point. She's running a business, and I had to see it from her point of view instead of being on the defensive. And so what I was able to do is I was able to say, yeah, you know what, Samira, if you can be 10, 15 minutes late, you can be 5 minutes early. In the scheme of my day, 20 minutes is not a lot, but it made such an impact of how I looked at myself and how I felt, because now, ironically, I'm known as the person who's always the first one there, or I'm always 10 minutes early, 15 minutes early. And if you would have told me that 20 years ago, I'd never believe you, because I was habitually late all the time. And it did impact. It brought shame. It made me feel bad. It made me feel like I was always explaining myself and coming up with excuses, and the other people were looking at me like, yeah, they know that I was full of crap. So I was able to eliminate that and erase that over a couple of months. Actually, it happened pretty quickly. I would say over a month, because then I started to have the benefits of what it felt like not to be having the anxiety as I was rushing to work or to anything for that matter. What it felt like to be seen in a different light. Like now I was the person who was always on time and I felt reliable. And so that's just, I like to just point that out to help you see how you can process it in your own personal experience. So slowing down gives you the opportunity to see what's really happening versus what you're seeing through the glasses. Because when we do feel those things, those internal like triggers, I don't like to use this word so much, I feel like it's overused, but it does sometimes bring you back to something in the past when you need to be in the present. And that's what slowing down does. It brings you to the present moment to look at the facts of what's really going on without bringing in something else, so that you're able to show up to that situation and really see it for what it is, and objectively, and without adding things to it, and from the perspective of what's going on. And that's really powerful, because a lot of people can't do that. And so when you can slow down, you're able to actually see yourself doing that. Like, wait a second, that's not what's going on. I know what I'm feeling in my body is like I'm being criticized. Maybe you had a mother who was highly critical, or maybe you've been in relationships with people who are nagging you all the time, or maybe you just feel that the world is against you. But if you stop and you slow down and you're able to see that's not what's happening here. Someone is making a legitimate complaint or concern, and they're allowed to do that, just like you're allowed to do that. So let me stop, slow down, and see what's really going on here. Number 2 is breathe. Now that you've slowed down and you're getting present to the moment, take a deep breath. Sometimes, if let's say somebody did say something offensive or passive aggressive or rude, slowing down and taking a couple deep breaths in and deep breaths out to relax and calm your nervous system, sometimes that makes them snap in and realize like, wait, what I said was rude and this person's not taking it. And if you would have just reacted to it with something back, then you're just both going at it. But if this has happened to me several times, and I've seen this with others when they've told me about their experience, like when you just stop and you slow down, you take a few deep breaths and you let the person just talk and you sit and slow things down. Sometimes that silence and that moment that you're really just breathing to calm your body down, your nervous system, is actually a moment for them to reflect on what they've said. If they've said something that's not cool. and not necessary, and like I said, passive aggressive or something. So a lot of times they correct themselves just simply by you breathing. And then you're like, oh, okay, got it. So breathing is not only good to slow your reaction down, right? That fight or flight gets triggered, and then the breathing gets you back to calm and peace, but it also allows a space and a gap and some sort of silence for a few seconds for the other person to reflect on what they've just said. So now you move to number 3, is where you get curious. Now, getting curious is important with many things in our life. We forget as children how curiosity was a beautiful thing. And if you think about all the people that have a lot of success in their life, or they really live a life that they really enjoy, it's because they've never let go of that sense of curiosity. So get curious. And it's really important to get curious when you're living in a world of responding, because in a reactionary, you're not thinking, you're just letting other things pull you and control you. So you got to get curious about what's really going on. So let's just say someone says something to you and you're kind of taken back by it. Well, get curious. Why is this person being this way? Maybe they didn't sleep. Maybe they're going through something tough. Maybe their mother has cancer and they've been taking care of her through chemo. Maybe they have a stomach ache. Maybe they didn't sleep well last night. I don't know what it is, but instead of reacting, if you start to focus on what it is it could be, you start to get away from being in your brain being in a reactionary mode, letting yourself just spark like somebody throws a match and you're just ready to go up in flame. Curiosity is also key for yourself. Let's say you do notice that you are being actually reactive because you're taking something personal, or you're being defensive, or you're internalizing it through something else because of something from your past. Well, get curious and ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling fight or flight sensations in my body when this person is just having a conversation with me? Maybe there's something that I need to work on internally so that I'm not so easily turned on in terms of my system, my nervous system. So if you're the kind of person that a lot of conversations do that for you, it's really important for you to go inward and to work on why that happens. And it's not going to happen overnight, but the self-awareness is what's key, and not hiding behind I'm shy, or that's just how I am, or that always happens to me not when I'm around people. No, you weren't born that way. Something happened to you that makes you be that way. Yes, some people are naturally more quiet than others, but they will still stick up for themselves when it's the right time, or they'll still be able to convey a message, and they will, more importantly, not receive a message in a way that's threatening. Then you get to number 4, which is the reappraise area of respond. So now that you've slowed down your breathing and you are getting curious of what's really going on to the situation now that you're present, you can move on to number 4, which is reappraisal. And reappraisal is about just that. Think about a house being appraised by an appraiser. He doesn't just drive by the house to give an appraisal and send it to the bank. He goes inside and looks at the plumbing, looks at the electricity, looks at the foundation, etc. You get the point. So this is what you do in the reappraisal step. You start to say, okay, what can I do here differently now that I'm seeing all the facts? I'm tired. Maybe this person's tired. It's January. The winter sucks. It's Monday. Whatever it could be. Maybe it's something more serious. The point is that you're taking all the things into account and putting them into that appraisal, and you're able to now see something different, which allows you to come up with a different solution, a different response. Now, this can even happen when you have an interaction with a stranger, and instead of taking it personal, and instead of getting mad and then it affects and snowballs into the rest of your life, think that in the reappraisal moment is where you can just be look at the other person as another human. Look at yourself as a human that's just maybe having a bad day, and maybe you shouldn't take it out on someone else. It's the same thing. You start to see all sides, right? Just like the plumbing and the electricity, you're able to really get the big picture so that you can get an accurate read on the conversation and the situation. Just like an appraiser gets an accurate read on the value of the home based on many different areas. And last but not least, compassion is number 5. Compassion is so key with a lot of things in life, but it is super key when you're responding versus reacting. And the reason is, let's say you are reacting in such a way that you're beating yourself up. You are taking it in a way that is bringing so many things from the past into a situation that doesn't need to be. And then you end up afterwards feeling terrible, feeling shame about how you reacted, feeling bad because maybe you tend to do that a lot. But if you could bring some compassion into it, some self-compassion in that example, and say, wow, you know what? I know what I'm doing here. I know that I tend to get defensive because of XYZ, and I'm gonna work on that. So I'm gonna relax and slow down and maybe just tell the person, like, look, right now I can't give you an answer, but I'm hearing you, I got you. I heard what you said. If you could just give me 5 minutes, 24 hours, whatever it is, the turnaround time, the time that you need to get back to this person to answer them. Same thing, even if it were a stranger does something that bothers you, it's easier to really want to lash out at someone you don't know. But the effects that that has on yourself and on the rest of the day, and your rest of the day, and maybe even further into a few days, you wouldn't believe how many people are impacted by those small interactions that could have gone better that just spun out of control. And this is where the self-compassion is key. Also, the compassion for the other person. I had a client who had an issue with a colleague and he didn't understand why he was such, in his words, an asshole. And he would say that, as soon as I walk in, I have a great weekend and I see his face and I'm already upset. So I asked him, well, what have you tried to do about it? Well, I've tried to just only talk to him when I need to and da-da-da-da-da. But it's just, now when I just see his face, it triggers something in his body. So I asked him, I'm gonna ask you to try something. Try being compassionate. And you say, why compassionate? And he was like, what? And I said, yeah, he has a great job. All his basic needs are met and he still sounds like an unhappy person. And we've all had a moment in our lives where we have a dark moment where we're unhappy. And if someone would just see us or just cut us some slack, how that really makes an impact. And maybe it's even what makes the clouds part so that we can seek help or see the light. There's no reason why someone who's happy, who has things going for them, who has a supporting, loving family and group of friends, social circle, is going to behave that way. Only unhappy people with deep-rooted, and then it becomes a habit for them. There is such thing as low-grade depression that happens for many years, or people who are just in dark places and don't have the support system that maybe you and I have to get the help. So when you meet someone that is just habitually, consistently grumpy, not nice or whatever, the best thing to do is to just look and say, wow, that person must be in pain. So he started going to work. My client started going to work and saying, hey, how was your weekend? And he started treating him differently. And surprisingly, the man started responding differently. When we don't react to people's bad energy, bad behavior, bad attitude, we actually can lead them out of it by responding differently and allowing them to then respond differently. And then at least you yourself, or you're not putting yourself through that pain and that annoyance and that struggle to deal with this difficult person, because you are really trying from a compassionate place. So being compassionate doesn't take a lot out of it. It just takes a little time and analysis, and just it takes you opening up your heart. And think about any time that you've been in a dark place, if someone could have extended that to you, what impact that would have made in your life. Thank you. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions or ideas, please leave them down below. I was thinking of making a video with more examples of how to put the respond and react into real life for you. So if you have any situations that you've had in the past that you'd like me to show you how I would implement it, how you could do that in the future, please feel free to leave those down below. I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video, and have a great day.